that these things we allow ourselves to be, like not trying to be something we're not trying to be like who we imagine a billionaire is or a successful guy, when we're authentically ourselves and we're successful, it just feels so much more rewarding.
Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, normally I would want him to be in a studio, but it's 50 mile an hour winds here and like 15. It's going to be 0 next week. And this A, you know what I mean? He's outside with his shirt. Look at those cannons. And he's I'm not even mad that he's outside. But here's the problem though. 2 years in a row. Texas can't handle 3 years in a row. Another ice storm, baby.
No, man. Yeah, Monday it's going to drop to like 19 degrees where nobody is.
19 degrees in Texas is like minus 30.
It's that's like all hell's broken loose at that point. We have
So what we're going to do is we're going to have these short episodes with people after the episode. We're going to release it. One's about gurus, one's about my time in the music business, one's about the podcast. So I just let the guests talk about whatever they want to talk about. And even though he is a model by day and a commercial real estate mogul and a investor, among other things, would I dare say that you have a double life?
I absolutely have a double life. Yeah, I moonlight as a guitarist in a shoegaze, indie alternative, college rock, 90s alt band that I love to shred. That's my passion. On the weekends anyway.
So this is an interesting topic that feeds into some calls I had with my clients today. We as humans, we have created a society of optimization. No longer can you make 60 grand a year. You have to make 60 grand in a day. And no longer can you sleep in. You have to do ice baths and all these things. But we focus, we tend to not put any attention to the things that give us energy and fill us up. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. So as you're busy running these companies and you're a dad and all these things, I love how you've never let music kind of fade away.
Well, to your point, there was definitely a time where I did, it wasn't what it is now. So I'll tell you, I've been a musician since I was 12 years old and been in bands, back and forth, different bands. College, that was like what I wanted to do, was be a professional, singer and guitarist. And then business started up and I was like, well, no time for that. Put it on the back burner. Had a little cover band I'd play like once a month. And then that started to feel like, it just felt like I was still sacrificing my soul a little bit. And so 3.5, 4 years ago, the business was going pretty good. I started to figure that out and I was like, I gotta go just play guitar and just, play shows about music I've created and that I'm passionate about. And it just happened. Like when I said I wanted to do that, somebody stopped me walking into a restaurant and said, hey, I saw your album. I know you play guitar. Why don't you come play with us? And so the band I'm in now, the Anapests, we've been at it about 4 years, and it just was all these perfect things all came together, and the music they were making was awesome, and I had a lot of fun. To your point, though, filling the bucket of the passion and the expression, it has to be there. And it doesn't matter what you do. I'm like you, I talk to a lot of business owners. There's always somebody, always something out there that you're yearning for more. And when you achieve, let's say, financial freedom, or you achieve these financial goals, you still feel like there's something missing, like whatever it is. And those hobbies and those things that you do with passion fulfill you. So that for me is what music is like this way to release maybe some of the tension that's in the job, or get away from the stress and just go let loose.
Guys, let me take a minute to tell you about my buddies over at Lead Hub, Ben and Aaron, the best humans I know. Not only are they amazing at marketing for trade companies, but Ben started his HVAC company in his garage, sold it for multi-million dollars. So when this guy talks, I listen. When we took over Dietz Mechanical, we had 22 reviews in 22 years. In 7 short months, we went from 22 reviews to 107. We went from a 4.2 to a 4.7. We tripled our Facebook presence and we tripled our calls. If you're an HVAC, plumbing, electric, landscaping company, and you're looking for a no BS approach to marketing, you're looking for people who have done it before, you got to go to leadhub.net.
I am in like this deep, lately been studying a lot about creativity. And what I notice a lot about my clients and just people I meet is that commerce, meaning business and optimizing creativity and art, is at a cross sections with itself at all times, right? You can't have the art, right, without the commerce, and you can't have the commerce without the art, but shall meet, right? And I just listened to a great episode on a equity podcast about the guy that started CAA, and his clients were Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro. He put together Jurassic Park, and he was talking a lot about that. And he goes, dude, we worked our butts off, and we got them to understand it. But I find myself, as I get older, learning more about old biographies, and I'm watching like Inside the Actor's Studio, like more of stuff, not like, okay, business, we get it. You're going to learn that by doing, but I'm more here to tell a story and make sure I'm tapped into who I am. And I feel myself kind of shifting a lot in my content I'm consuming.
Well, you're absolutely spot on. I think like when you get your routine dialed in and you figure out what your vision is for your business and you figure out all these things, there's still a person behind all of that, right? There's still like emotion. There's still things that get in the way in life. There's like all these challenges that we have, and you don't see that from a lot of people. You don't see that transparency. You're right. Everybody wants you to be grinding. They want you to take ice baths. They want you to have, I'm on 75 hard right now, by the way, which is, I know that's your like lifestyle for the last 3 years, but that's, I'm tapping a little bit into the Austin Linney morning right now. But the point is that we don't see a lot of the behind the scenes. The personality sometimes doesn't come through, or it gets clouded by like what people have imagined themselves to be and how they project that. Mm-hmm. And they're at a distance from who their authentic self is. I mean, I'll be honest with you right now, like going through counseling or coaching with some of my mentors right now, that's the crossroads I'm at, is who is this person that you've created outwardly? And then what's your interaction with that? And for me, like there's this almost a dichotomy between me as an artist and a guitar player and a creator, and me as a business person. And it doesn't have to be a dichotomy. If you're living authentically, those things like come together. But we all have this image of what a person should look like when they're a successful business person. We have this image of how we should approach people with the things that we've accomplished if we have this mission or this goal. And I don't think it has to be that way. I think that we can be authentically human, and we can be real, and we can want to share expression and emotion in a way that isn't just like one-dimensional.
So this all came at a head. I realized where it happened. So I went to a business conference called Main Street Summit in Columbia, Missouri, after I was in Texas for a little bit. And there was like 2 days of talks, and there was like 25 talks a day in different places around the city, and you could go see who you wanted to go see, and there was a main stage. And there was a lot of amazing business people out there, but there was 2 speeches that really stuck with me. And what I realized is that guy could have been giving me the information to make me worth $100 million. But there was no story behind it. There was no energy. There was no nothing. And the guy that was talking about raising money for wells in Africa, you could tell he's done that speech so many times. He was an ex-musician. He was an ex-nightclub promoter. He knew how to own the audience, and everybody was crying. And like, I still think about that speech, and I thought to myself, this all comes down to story, creativity, and believability in what you're doing every day. And if you don't tap into what you're doing and you don't understand where you're created, then it's really going to fall flat for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Like, and I think that these things we allow ourselves to be, like, not trying to be something we're not trying to be like who we imagine a billionaire is or a successful guy. When we're authentically ourselves and we're successful, it just feels so much more rewarding. And I'll tell you, I mean, there was a time when I gave up those things because I thought that's what you had to do. And I realized how unsatisfying it is to change yourself either for other people or away from your authentic self and things that serve you. Don't get me wrong. If you're doing shitty stuff and you need to get rid of bad habits and you need to get rid of bad people in your life, change it, make it better. But don't give up the good things that you are. Don't give up the creative things that you are, the expressive person, or the strong person that you are to try to get along with everybody. So,
well, 90% of the time they don't. 90% of the time they don't even know who they are anymore, because they've molded and masked. They've molded and masked themselves so many times over that 9 times out of 10, I spend the first 6 weeks coaching somebody deconstructing who they think they are before we even talk about going into who they want to be.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you an example too in business. There's somebody that I know through social media who I got to know who was very interested in working with me. He was an investor. He wants to do business with me. He calls me all the time. But every time I talk to him, I feel that gap in authenticity where it's like, I hear you saying you want to do this, but your emotion, your like passion isn't there. I feel a lack of energy when I talk to you about this. So either this is so against who you are as a person, even if you've been successful at it, even if you think this is what you should be doing, that it drains out all of the energy that's behind this if you were truly authentic and passionate about what it was you were doing. And I think that's everything. I mean, you can look at like musicians who have been, even musicians, let's talk about that for a minute. Guys, if you've seen, I remember seeing Rush in 2007. At this point, Rush has been on tour for 35, 40 years. And Neil Peart played his 4 billionth drum solo. And not a single time did he look up from the drum kit and make an expression. It was just this. And I was like, this could be so much better if he actually enjoyed what he was doing, right? And I think there's a lot of people in our world that are just like that are doing that every day.
Dude, I saw, and it pains me to say this, because I'm a huge fan, but I saw Tyler Childress at in Helotes, and I saw him with my buddy, and I looked over at my buddy and I go, this guy will never be as famous as he wants to be, because he's just sitting up there with no fucking emotion, dry as a bone, not interacting with the crowd. I get it, dude. You're an amazing songwriter, and I love your voice. But you compared to Chris Stapleton or Zach Brown? Come on, guy.
No, you're right. The charisma, the passion, it comes through. And if you're just doing it to do it, it's what's the point, But I think that translates across everything. And I say that to kind of start to summarize this. But when I'm on stage playing guitar, what's great about it is that I don't have to be there, right? Like that's what's so fulfilling about it is I could walk away at any time and I'm still fine financially. I'm not forced into doing that like it's my job. I'm there because I love to do it, and it comes through every single show. I put my heart and soul into it, and like if we do poorly, it doesn't matter. We're not on a record label. If I do great, it feels good, but it's like this is just a way of connecting part of myself to the world, and I think like everybody really needs that.
Yeah, And we're not going to wrap this up because I'm loving this conversation so much. And watch me be a skilled podcast host and transition it like a champ. My favorite thing to do is call out what I'm going to do before I do it. So you see how talented I am. But I want to tell a story. I want to tell a story about this man who's probably one of my best friends in the game, who introduced me to my current business partner that we're going to do great things with. I'm always appreciative. You've listened to almost probably every episode of the podcast. We're closing up on 600 now. And
I don't know
we're about
everyone,
15, 20 in.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them. In the beginning, you're too big for me now. You don't listen anymore. But
I do.
So you DM me like 15, 20 in, and you were like, "Hey, dude, the podcast isn't about you. Ask more questions and shut the fuck up." And I was like, "Noted." and then like 200 episodes in, you DM me and you were like, "Hey, man, great job. You really came into your own." Like, it was my favorite DM I ever got because you were like, you'd seen like the progression.
Oh yeah,
and like,
man.
so I just appreciate like you watching the growth and everything, because it's meaned a lot to me.
Oh, for sure. You put in the work, man, and you have built an awesome thing here. 600 podcasts. That's phenomenal.
Dude, it's crazy town. You know what I said to myself? I'm obsessed with something right now, right? Like, I read Good to Great and it changed my life because I realized that most of my shit was good. I thought to myself the other day, I said, what if I did 10,000 podcast episodes? Like, what would that look like?
I'm sorry.
Like, what would my life create, right? No, you're fine. Like, what would my life create, right, if I did 10,000 podcast episodes, right? Like, that's the way I'm thinking now. It's not like, hey, we're just going to do a couple. Like, when you do something, like when you sign up for something, you're either in it or you're not.
Yeah.
And now that we've already broken through this, like 500, it's like, what would it look like at 2,000? What would it look at 5,000? I don't know what would happen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I think that's a great way to extrapolate across everything that you do. Like, what does it mean to think way bigger? And who will you be 10,000 episodes in, Austin? You know?
Yeah.
You'd be
probably a shell of myself. Yeah, probably a shell of myself. But what I want to talk about today, and I don't know if you can announce it, so if you can't, we can hide it or whatever. But what I'm more excited to talk to you about, because people that have listened to you before know you're a real estate agent and you own a brokerage and you're an investor. But talk about the steps that you took, right? You were doing a lot of residential, then you started getting excited about commercial. Talk about that leap, that shift that you took in your business and that jump that you made.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that is definitely something that took strategy, tactics. So I started the business in 2013. I got my license, but full-time 7 years ago. The way that it happened, I mean, I was a solo agent for a long time, then I built a team. And by the time I started building the team, I was really getting tired of the residential side. It wasn't exciting me anymore. And as much as we were being successful, I just couldn't really see myself doing that only long term. And I took a couple of really big development projects on and things that were really honestly outside of my scope a little bit, but I had to grow into. And I started collecting commercial clients, and I wasn't yet saying I was a commercial agent. The reality is, in Texas, if you have your license, you can do both. It's not always one or the other, but most brokers won't let you do commercial unless you have some experience. So I built experience by just doing it. And I got a call from the director in commercial, and she was like, "Hey, you're obviously taking some really great listings in this, and I think you would be a phenomenal commercial agent. You should just go for it." So at that point, I had my team. I started referring some of my business out. I was still taking all my listings. All my residential buyers were going to my team. My admin and my staff started getting trained on commercial deals, how the listing agreements work, collecting, getting attorneys, getting engineers, architects in that space so that we could have a team when we were ready to roll. And then last year, January, I said, that's it. No more residential. I'm going full time. I have something to show you that I just got today.
Yeah.
I got an award today. It's most improved.
Most improved.
Which in 2022, I really wasn't, like I said, focused on it. So in the division this year, I was top 10 and became a commercial coach, actually. And just like the whole thing moved really quickly. But last year, I just started using the same tactics I had on the residential side and said, what would it look like if I did this? If I cold call commercial every day? I learned the scripts, I learned the objections, I learned the market. And that was just eat, sleep, breathe, commercial real estate. Everything else I gave away except for investments. So I'm still doing my own investments. But yeah, I think for a lot of agents, there's like a big hurdle there. They're afraid they don't have enough information. They're afraid they don't have enough knowledge. And obviously I've been in it a little bit longer and had exposure, but the knowledge isn't the hardest part. It's figuring out what your niche is and figuring out how you can be one of the best at that. And the business is there. So it was a good year in terms of production, even though a lot of people's businesses suffered last year. We were up 135%. So.
Well, I think what's interesting, right, is I don't think enough people, and I've been lucky enough in my career, in my life, to kind of spot them / get lucky. I'm obsessed with this like ride the wave thing, and it doesn't go without saying that San Antonio over the last couple of years is exploding and growing, as Austin's getting bigger, in Central Texas and Texas in general, right? And so you kind of pair up timing with knowledge, with relationships, with this kind of explosion into this market. But I'll be honest with you, the bigger issue, right, as we get into business brokerage and buying businesses is like the overall sentiment from the older people in the group is one of mass laziness and then kind of over it / not bringing tech into the group. And so there is kind of this void that's being left, right? I saw it with my buddy in land. These guys were just passing on, $6 million deals because they already had money, and he did 95 million, right? It's like they didn't want to do it. He's out there hustling. Now he's doing 150 million a year, right? There is, if you're new and you're willing to learn, I think there's going to be, especially with what's coming down the pipe and what's happened last year, I think there's going to be a huge void in the market for quality agents to step up and take a market share. That's what we're talking about in our HVAC space. That there's time that people aren't going to last, and it's time to grab that market share.
Yeah, I think there's definitely the factor of who's in the game right now, and for a long time the commercial real estate space was the good old boys group, right? It's the guys that have been doing it for a long time. They're trading deals with just each other. They're not returning phone calls to agents who have qualified buyers if they're not in their database, right? Like if they haven't done a transaction with them in the past. And it's a bunch of old white dudes. And I know that I'm a white dude. I'm not super old yet, but that was like what the that's what the kind of generalization of that industry was. And when I got to Keller Williams and I saw that, first of all, it's the only female-led brokerage in the country. Alicia Shepard and Cynthia Lee, amazing people. They do phenomenally well with education as well as promotion and bringing people in and growing this organization. We're up to 2,500 agents in the country, and it will be even bigger this year. So their input and their kind of tactics in the market, where they looked around and they were like, the way commercial brokerage has been done is not, for one thing, it's not fair, it's not productive. But what they do is they bring a bunch of people in, they give them a 10% split, they make them do all the work, and it's like dog eat dog. I mean, literally just cutthroat in the business. And most of us look at our values and we go, that doesn't align with who we are. That doesn't align with the way that we want to do business. I don't want to be worried that the people in my office are stealing my deals. I'm not going to steal their deals. I want us all to win. We all win together, right? So I think that approach here at KW has made me a lot more successful. They've pushed me through and helped me rise through the ranks. But yeah, go look at the board of directors on any of the big names and take a look at that profile page of who's up there. And I think that is going to be changing a lot in the next 10 years.
So you have a son, you have multiple investments, you're in a band, you have listings, you have agents that work for you, you have all these things, you're in the community, like you're a busy man. But like, sure, you still have a good time. You still travel a bunch. Like, how do you fit it all in for anybody that's out there, trying to level up their life?
You also left off that I'm a agent coach as well. So I also coach other agents.
Yeah, you're an agent coach too. There you
go.
But
yeah, but the point is, I have some really great people in my company, and I have a really phenomenal ops manager, keeps me on track, and so I designed my team and company years ago with the intent of only having to do one thing within it. My job is to go get new business, and that's it. That's all I really think about. Everything else gets sent to the team to manage. And so as productive as we are, I get a lot of, I have to give a lot of credit to the people around me. And then, the systems that we have in place just make it work. I think like having somebody that you trust, you have mutual respect, we understand how each other's operates. There's a great book out there called The Founder and the Force Multiplier. You've probably read it, but the person with the vision, you can't execute that vision if that's all you have, right? So those people out there that figure out how to make the vision a reality are what makes the biggest difference.
I think there's two things that I'm living by, and I made a promise to myself at the end of the year after some things happened earlier this year. There's two things I refuse to be a part of anymore. One of those being, I will always speak my truths, no matter what. Moving forward, if I feel it, I'm going to say it, even if it rubs people the wrong way, or because I just want to be able to sleep at night knowing I said it out instead of living in my own angst. That's number one. Number two is to get maniacally obsessed with never doing anything I shouldn't do, but on the back of that, not beat myself up for not wanting to do those other things because I shouldn't be doing them, right? Yeah. And it's the weirdest thing in the world. I've got 46 employees now, and every day they need me less, and every day my ego takes a hit. But I'm so happy. Yeah.
Well, that's a big thing. So another book I have just finished is actually called On the Shortness of Life and How to Make It Longer by Seneca. It's a 2,000-year-old book, a Stoic book, and it's about exactly that life is really short, especially if you're trying to please other people or you're trying to do things that aren't making you happy. And so being really honest with yourself about what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and letting other people do what they're strong at, right? I just had a conversation with one of my agents this morning, and she's newer to the team, and she said, I got to be honest with you, I really want to do this thing, like let's say it's just adding to my database and tagging it, and I want to learn how to do that because I don't want to feel helpless. So instead of having another team member or an admin do that work, I want to be part of it. So people have this natural desire and natural drive to be wanted, needed, productive, and contribute to whatever that mission is. And if they don't get to do that, they start to feel weak or hopeless or like they need to get out. And so what you're dealing with is figuring out what that thing is that you need to be doing that's not other people relying on you, and how you can keep your ego ego detached from you a little bit.
Well, it's mainly for me to realize that, the bigger we get, the more and less I'm going to be involved. But what I've realized is that moment they need me, that moment that I negotiate, right? When I buy a company that's shut down for $9,000 with the customer list and the phone number that's going to make us hundreds of thousands of dollars, they needed me for that 2 hours because only I can get that done. When I need to negotiate with a vendor or buy that next business, right? And what I think is interesting, right, is when I went to that conference and I went to Texas for Business, I was gone for 14 days from the office. I was driving back to the office and I asked my COO, I said, I've been hearing that it's great around there. People were flowing. I said, when I come back on Monday, let's not go back to the way that it was. Let me, piece by piece, start continuing to push myself out of the business. Because I realize when you put your own needs and wants on the business, you're not putting the needs and wants of the collective on the business. You're putting what you need to feel safe and secure. And that's not the business's job.
Right. No, that's a really good point. You just said it, to feel safe and secure, to feel needed. And I think that security has to just come from somewhere else. And it's either a deep understanding of you and your value and not letting your insecurity kind of override that. And I think all high D drivers, CEO type people deal with this early on in their career when they're starting to manage people and leverage out tasks. When you're the one who built the business, like this was the biggest struggle for me 4 or 5 years ago, building the team, was just giving away stuff because nobody can do it as good as I do it. Nobody can do it as good as I do it. Bullshit. You know, there are 100 people out there who do that thing better than you and who will leverage their skill set to make you more money. That's their job, right? So, and if you get to focus on one thing, and this is, you know, going back to Gary Keller, amazing book, The One Thing. Everybody should read it, whether you're in real estate or not. But to figure out what that one thing is for you and execute it better than anybody else does, and continually make that task the highest priority and also the highest dollar productive thing in your life, that's how you really succeed. And that's how you feel, you know, really fulfilled with the business that you build.
So, as you know or don't know, Ben and the guys over at Lead Hub are like really obsessed with like Culture Index. And like, I've never really done any of those things. I've only done like DISC and stuff. I don't really know that stuff, right? And they made me fill out one when I was in town.
Okay.
And my label is Rainmaker. And I'm well, I wish I would have got that. I wish I would have got that thing 10 years ago. Yeah. Could have solved some things. But you know, but then I realized
with yourself.
Well, no. What I realized is I needed this year as CEO to live through the pains and the struggles of the actual business. So when I go buy more businesses, I can speak to that owner directly on a path of empathy, the way that nobody else could when you're living in a suit in New York City.
Yeah. So you're separating yourself from the hedge fund and the private equity firms that are competing with you because they've never done it. They look at a spreadsheet, right? Well, Austin is not looking at a spreadsheet. Austin's looking at how to fix a F-250 on the fly.
You know what? Do you know what I did yesterday? I drove in a freaking whiteout snowstorm with a trailer and a truck down to Pittsburgh, an hour and 45 minutes to pick up a unit, to go drive it up to a mountain house in the middle of nowhere in 2 foot of snow to get my guys so we could get a customer heat. That's a story you can tell an owner when you're trying to buy his business.
Well, and that separates the men from the boys, man. You know, that might get you a deal. Yeah.
Well, what I do, right, is I try to let them know from time to time that I won't do anything that I don't ask them to do. And I'll be frank, I'll just be frank, I'll call myself out, bro, I'm pretty soft. No, I don't mean I'll go do the thing. Don't get me wrong. I'll go hard all day. But I think to myself, it's 15 degrees outside. Yeah. My guys show up every morning at 6:30. They're lugging furnaces around in the cold 12 months a year. They've been doing it for 25, 30 years. Some of these guys are 65 and 70. I have so much respect for who they are as people. And I don't think we as people understand that these are the people keeping us safe and warm and our toilets clear. Like, I have so much respect for the trades. So much respect.
Yeah, and I mean, it's honestly getting harder and harder to find good contractors in those trades. And I just went to a property yesterday where they had this place listed for $1.2 million, and it was absolute garbage, and every single thing that they had touched in that house looked terrible. Like, so finding those people who have dedicated their lives to it and aren't just like saying, yeah, I can do that for $200 an hour, because the money's pretty good if you know what you're doing. But what you're doing is proving to your company that you're there for the long haul, and you're there to make sure that their job's safe, and that you're putting in as much work as they are.
I wrote a post the other day. I said, here's change management in a 12-month span. Who the hell is this guy? He's a scammer. He's too young. All right, maybe he knows what he's talking about. Then he drops the ball. I hate his guts. We're all going to lose our job. I hate him. Oh my God, I love him. I'm going to start talking about the company. Now I'm going to start talking. I'm going to refer my friends. That's change management. In a nutshell.
Yeah.
And the way to combat against that, just I'm talking about in general, right, is that you have to be consistent for yourself, and you have to be consistent in your business every day.
Yeah.
And there's many days that you and I would assume, don't want to do it, but that's not the job. The job is I wake up every day and I tell myself I need to earn my business partners' respect, I need to earn my employees' respect, and I need to earn the community's respect every day.
Yeah.
No matter what, no matter how I'm feeling. And if I focus on that, then the rest will take care of itself.
Well, and you got to do that for you. I mean, like, that's what keeps you in line, and that's what kind of keeps you moving in the right direction. But those are all, those people will help you on those days where you don't feel like doing it. But there's something else deeper inside of you that's pushing you to go out there. Austin, you could walk away from everything, right? Like you wouldn't want to. It's not part of
1,000%. I do it all the time. Dude, there's two people inside me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
You're right.
I think that's a really
I think about it all the
important
time. Well, I think about it all the time. Do I have a mentor of mine? He has plenty of money. He's retired 3 times on a 1,000-acre ranch. He lasted for about a month each. So I can't do it. And the difference between me and others is I could go to Nepal and never be talked to again. Like, I wouldn't need to talk to anybody. like there is such a need. Cassie actually asked me this last night. She goes, there's something driving you deeper than just money, and because this is a lot of work. Like, you're showing up on podcasts, you're doing I think people need to understand. They ask me all the time, right? I'm sure they ask you too, like, do you ever get scared? Do you ever want to give up? I said, yeah, every fucking day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I fantasize about it sometimes. But
dude. Yes.
I think about it. Of course, we all do. Like, I hear about some guy who, I think we were calling a contractor, and they were like, oh yeah, no, he left and he went and built a house in the woods. And I was like, with what? They're like, he saved like $40,000. He went and built a house in East Texas. And we're like, that sounds great. Like, I just want to spend a year building a house with my hands. But there's so much more to it that's like, it's because the vision is way further out than what else is out there. And what your vision is not the next 6 months or the next 12 months. Your vision is the next 10 to 20 years, right? So like, what we're building, you don't give up on because you had a bad day. You don't give up on it because you had a bad month. You'll slog through every day, even if it's good or bad. And at least me, in my understanding, is that like, life will go on while we're here. Life will go on no matter what we do, whatever we choose, and it'll go on long after we're dead. And so what impact do I want to have, and what legacy could I leave, even if that exists, right? And if I was looking back on my life 30 years from now, would I want to be the guy who gave up on that thing because it got hard? Or would I want to be the guy that just kept fucking pushing? And I would want to be the guy that kept pushing, because that's what integrity is. I said I was going to do something. I'm going to do it. I want to be proud of that.
I just have so much respect for the last 38 minutes. It's just such great content because we're being honest. Like, dude, I might have mentioned this last year. For 6 months, I trudged through the podcast with didn't want to do it at all.
Yeah.
To the point that my parents said, "You don't seem like you're having fun." Like literally could hear it, like me, you can't, people that don't know me can't hear it as much. But I said to myself, you showed up, you were going to do something, you have promises. I said, but you just have to refine your fire for it, and you have to reposition it where it makes you happy, so then you can be happy to give it to other people. And the moment I did that, the moment I took a little break, kind of put it down for a little bit and refocused it, changed the format a little bit, it's all there again. It's all exciting. It's all great. And so what I think we get caught up in, and Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time, is we do the same thing too much. Like if you brush your teeth with your right hand, use your left hand. If you always drive down the same street, dude, here's a true story. This just happened today. I got a brand new client, barely know the guy. We've only had 2 sessions. I literally verbatim talked for 15 minutes about what he was thinking about. And he goes, "How can you do that? You barely know me." I go, "Because I've done this enough." I've done this enough. I've talked to 600 people on the podcast. We all think we're so different, but we're really all the same. And from a guy who's traveled more than most, the one fact that I wish America would wake up to is to realize that we're all a lot more similar than we think.
Yeah. No, at the end of the day, and I think that humanizing element too is what, and being humble too. Like, you and I are both pretty successful in what we've done this far, and we're also people that talked about this years ago and then made it a reality. But that doesn't mean that we're above or below, or like, people are all people. We all wake up in the morning, we do whatever that work is that we have to do. We eat, we sleep, and that makes us so much more relatable than thinking that people are superheroes out here. And this is something I've been going through actually with one of my mentors, is feeling like I have to be a superhero and that I can't be vulnerable. At the beginning of last year, I went to a coaching skills camp. I broke through, we did this board breaking activity. I don't know if you've done this before. You write what's holding you back, you punch through the board. I punched through that board so fucking hard, I almost punched the guy in the face. And what I had written on there was, your lack of vulnerability is holding you back from being your authentic self. Your lack of awareness and being honest with people is holding you back from letting people see you as a human, see yourself as a human, and like allow you to make mistakes. It took a whole 12 months for me to come to that realization and feel like I'm going to give that up. I'm not a superhero. I've made mistakes. Last year, I felt shitty, just like everybody else in the real estate industry. I felt like giving up. And I didn't. And the whole energy has changed for me because I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say, like, that's how I felt. I didn't feel like going forward. There were days in the last, quarter of last year where I was like, I got to find another job or something. And that didn't end who I was, and I'm not the only one. I can tell you that. The last 2 weeks from this point back have been absolutely insane, and all the work that we put in over the last 12 months is starting to pay off. Just had to wait.
I heard on a podcast, this guy talks about alter egos and people we create to work jobs. He said a person that creates and is inauthentic or vulnerable with who they are can always accept praise but never accept love.
Ugh, dude, you're gonna make me cry. Yeah, no, that's exactly true. I think you're a lot like me in that, Austin.
Mm-hmm. We Cassie told me, she goes, Austin, what are you, the savior for an entire fucking county? Shut the fuck up. Who are you? You know? But here's what's crazy. And this is the first time I've ever done this, and I'm being as vulnerable as I can. And Ben, I'm going to send this to you because it matters to me. Ben said something to me. He said, hey man, he said, most of your life you've been the stallion running with some little puppies. He goes, you're rolling with a couple of stallions. He goes, lean on us. Ask for help. You're not alone. We're going to do this together.
Yeah.
That statement changed my fucking life.
Yeah.
And then more importantly, yeah, shout out to Ben Hubbard. More importantly, to accept that and be okay with it.
Hell yeah. No, and I've been having this conversation for the last month that I used to think that a lack of vulnerability and a lack of like holding that part back, that emotional side back, that fear back from the world, was strong, that was courage, and that would make people love you and care about you, right? And I had it completely backwards, that what makes you strong is admitting you're afraid and doing it anyway, right? Like, it's so cliche almost now to think back on it, but to admit that you don't know something, or that you're scared, or that you need help, is the bravest fucking thing you can do.
Dude,
you're scared of looking stupid.
I got clients. Dude. They go, I want to get to a place. Tell me if you heard this from your coaching clients. I want to get to a place where there's no stress and no peace. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? I said, how about you say that the stress and the anxiety is always going to be there, but I'm not going to let it consume me. Let's get in reality.
Right. So here's my favorite analogy.
You're always
if you're
growing.
Training for a marathon.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're training for a marathon and you become an Olympic runner, from the time that you started to the time that you hit that race, the race didn't get any easier. You just got faster, right? The race is just as hard for an Olympic athlete as it is for somebody who's never run a marathon in their life. The pace just gets faster. And that's where we are. It's like everything just rolls off our back that would affect people or say inexperienced people in a way that, really wouldn't bother us at all. But those things do pile up. And if we're not aware of it, and if we're not getting the help that we need, it does eventually break you down. No matter how strong you are, no matter how smart you are, like if you don't have it dialed in and you're not honest with yourself, you just keep throwing stuff back, you're going to wind up with so much baggage, you're not going to be able to deal with it when it all implodes. So point is, you have to be humble enough to say, I need help.
I'm going to give you a little, one of my favorite quotes is Jim Rohn says, you know what the top 1% does that the others don't? They ask. Like, they ask for help, and they ask for support, and they ask, and they're real with their spouse. I'll call myself out. Like my ex-wife, I rarely talk about her, but I used to carry the burden of our entire relationship, finances, everything, all on my shoulders, never talk about it, none of those things, right? And she told me, she said, you make me feel fucking crazy because you act like everything's fine, and I'm over here losing my shit. And I realized that wasn't what she wanted. She wanted somebody to be honest, to share, like, hey, I'm stressed, this is hurting. And that kind of opened me up to realize that I'm very direct and truthful with my parents, my dad and my stepmom.
Right.
And they love it. Like, they're just like, hey man, like, Austin's going to tell you right what he thinks. Like, and it's just such an easier way to live because there's no ambiguity in it. It's just like, boom.
Well, you know what I realized too? So the relationship I'm in now is very much like that as well. We've become very like open and honest. And I think that's the only way you can have a relationship. My marriage was not like that. It was very much like you're talking. I'm going to carry this burden on my back and I'm not going to ask for help. Even though I'm scared, even though like, shit is hitting the fan, I'm just going to go through it. And it's not an honest way to be. And so last year when I was going through this, I told my partner, like, I'm struggling here. I'm afraid like all my investments that I've worked so hard for are going to go to crap. The market's going to go to crap. The business is going to go to crap. Everything I have worked for the last 7-10 years is going to go away like poof, right? And she was like, and what if it does? Like, I have your back. We're going to get through anything we have to get through, whatever it takes. You have the knowledge and the skills to build whatever you need, right? So like these things are things that you don't have to go through by yourself. You have people around you who support you. And we were a team in that instance where I felt like I had the support that I needed to go and just take that stuff head on and not wallow in self-pity, right? And so that was the first time I think in my relationship that I felt like, man, this person really has my back. And like whatever happens, this is a ride or die, man. That's what that is, ride or die.
It's so crazy because I think we're so similar. So look, this is my problem in my relationship. Are you ready for it? Like this is I love calling myself out on this because it's absolutely asinine. She loves me too much. Like holy shit, what a terrible problem to have. Yeah. But like what people don't understand is I've never experienced real, honest love from somebody that's in my life. Yeah. Like, so this is like a new thing for me. Like, oh, you hate my guts. You're mad at me right now, but you still love me and you want to be with me because I was taught we get in a fight, we're going to break up. That's what I'm taught.
Right.
And so to live through that and to stand my ground and to have honest conversations and it's still just so we're clear, I'm still closed up on certain things and I'm working to open it up. But just being able to say like, hey, I'm fucking struggling here, man. Like, is a big move for me because I'm typically and here's what's even worse. I felt like for years I had to be the one because I was coaching other people and I wasn't allowed to show any of that side of me. And now I'm just like straight up, man. I don't want if my clients can't see me for who I am, then I don't want them to be my clients.
I think that's really interesting too as a coach is, how much do I allow people to see, right? Like, and when I saw that my coach, people put coaches on a pedestal in a way, right? Because they're the ones guiding them through. And when I saw one of my coaches was going through something really challenging, I thought that's amazing of them to be that vulnerable and be that, open with what they're dealing with. And we could help each other with this, right? Like you're absolutely right. There's no circumstance in the world where honesty and vulnerability aren't the right path. That honesty, vulnerability aren't the way to get the thing that you are after. So that's been my whole theme all of 2023. And it turned out to be like a big test and a big challenge. And here we are. And I feel like a weight is lifted off my shoulders. So.
Yes. And you want to know what the word is? I got it right on my board right there. You want to know what our word is for 2024? You ready, Tim?
What is it?
You ready?
Yeah.
Inevitable. Inevitable.
I feel like that from the time we met for coffee. I was like, whatever this was, what, 4 years ago now? Like maybe more.
4 years ago. Shout out to Michael Ortiz. Shout out. Yeah, we didn't even know he was there after me and this guy met.
I know. We just had a bromance.
We were in, baby.
I remember when we met for coffee, I was like, the very first time you had this whole vision, this whole plan, and I was like, whatever this guy wants to do, he's gonna do it. Like, whatever you say you're gonna do.
Dude, I gotta say because and Clint's very hard to please. Yeah. Clint told me one time, he said, look, dude, I don't invest in anybody or any friends, but whatever the fuck you're doing, I'm in.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm in it, baby.
I love that. I love Clint. Let's get a golf game together.
Dude, he's the man. Clint, I've never met somebody that is 30 years old and he's 80, but he's amazing.
30 going on 80. He's my ride or die scramble partner, so I can't wait.
You know what? You know what I love about Clint? I'm going to send this to him too. What I love about Clint is Clint refuses to allow you to think small.
Yeah.
He won't do it. The first day I met him, I was like, this is my goal for the year, and he was like, that's cute. Do better.
That's cute.
I was like, damn. All right.
I love that guy. Classy.
Tim, if people want to reach out to you, go ahead.
I just said classiest shit talker I know.
What were you going to say?
I said
classiest shit talker ever. Yes. If people want to find you, they want to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Team Team Warlow at Instagram.com. I mean, that's not how that works. That's my ad. And Facebook. However you want to reach out, you'll find me. It's the internet.
I love it. Guys, really, really enjoyed this conversation. Just so everybody knows, we jumped on for 10 minutes and it went for 54. And it was flowing so good, I just let it run. That's the dream podcast. So hope everybody got some value. I already know the title of this podcast. I'm super excited. So, send it to a friend, send it to somebody that gets some value. Rate us, review us, and send it around. We'll see you next time.